Yo neighbors, Baldy Locks reviews. May the Power of the Force 2025. So this is where a bunch of creators along with Punk with Toys go back and look at some of the Star Wars stuff from years and years and years ago. This year we're looking at the prequel trilogy. So we're talking around episode 1, 1999. I picked this thing to go over. Now, this is the Commtech system. This is what we're going to look at. This thing is not just a piece of junk.
What a piece of junk!
It actually inspired a lot of modern day technology using some really old technology. Does that make sense? Anyway, for May Power of the Force, or whatever we're calling it these days, we're looking at the Commtech paperweight that's in my hand that's more than a paperweight. Coming up. Yo neighbors, so we are looking at the Commtech. I think in some markets it was called Data Talk or Data Talk or whatever you want to call it, but it was a unique gimmick that came out with episode 1, and it was an early look at like digital transfer to make toys a little more interactive, and it actually inspired quite a few things. But before we get into this, Star Wars always had some type of gimmick, right? In the original toys, they had the telescoping lightsabers. Some figures for a time came with a coin like this. See if we can get that to focus here. But that is an Ewok coin, so this came out sometime around Return of the Jedi. And then right before the prequels came out, we had an expanded universe line. Last year, I went over Grand Admiral Thrawn, and the gimmick that came with him was this 3D pop-up play set that was part of the card back. I love those. I don't know why they don't still use something like that. And speaking of Thrawn, this was a deep cut character back in the 90s. One of the first of the expanded universe to get an actual figure. And there were always these like deep cut characters getting figures. So there was Thrawn, there was this fan favorite Efont Man, which is like, I guess, Jamaican for Elephant Man. There was this thing, I don't, it's like a dog and a toad or something. I'm assuming this is from one of the prequel trilogies. I don't even know what this thing is. But it's got an open and closed mouth, so that's always cool. Expanded universe, undercover Luke Skywalker. This is from Shadows of the Empire. I guess it's like a royal stormtrooper or something. Sorry, I forget. You got this 4-armed character. This was from the prequel trilogy. I think he was Obi-Wan's friend that ran a diner. And continuing with the deep cut characters that were kind of gimmicky figures, you got this, I don't remember if this is Aunt Beru or Uncle Owen, but this was kind of a grotesque figure that they came out with. This was after the stormtroopers attacked them in A New Hope. I don't know why they made this figure. And then speaking of Luke, you had this like, I don't know, self-pleasuring Luke. I don't know what this is. I don't even remember buying this thing. Like, what is he doing? What is he supposed to be doing? Squiggle Vision Luke. Squiggle Vision. We all know Squiggle Vision. Another favorite kind of, I wouldn't say this is a deep cut, but this had a neat gimmick feature where Darth's head glows in the dark. So it's not going to show up here. I'll try and take a little clip and put it in here. But that glows in the dark. That was always kind of cool. Other gimmicks that they had were these, like, I think this came out right before the Commtech Reader. It was like these flashback series figures, and you would have the original trilogy version of C-3PO, and you would pull this down and you would get the new, well, not new, this would be the prequel version of C-3PO. Leia had a figure like that, and you would pull it down and you would see the Queen here. And at some point you had these, I guess they were supposed to be, this isn't going to work, but I don't have a light to throw behind here. I'll try and take a separate video of this too. These were supposed to be like movie cells. I have a whole bag of them. I don't know why I have these. I remember being kind of cool at the time. You could hold it up and see a scene from the movie. And then another cool gimmick that was kind of a precursor to the Commtech system was we always wanted kind of like interactive figures, right? So in the 90s, tech and sounds started to get integrated into certain toys, and here with R2-D2, they came out with this push button R2-D2 that has the sounds. And as cool as that is, you couldn't do that with like really other figures, because the size of the chipboard that's in there or the soundboard, you really couldn't get that in a figure like Darth Vader or Chewbacca. So the workaround was they came up with this Commtech Reader. The audio is awful, but the technology at the time was pretty impressive. So it uses this like RFID, which is radio frequency identification. That technology goes all the way back to World War II. It was a way to kind of like identify friendly planes and enemy planes. And then over decades and decades of time, they refined it to use on like cargo containers, railroads. RFID is kind of big in like retail and inventory management for supply chain. But with this Commtech Reader, Hasbro found a kind of a unique way to use it. So it's not exactly RFID, but it's a form of RFID where it transmits this radio frequency of data to this system, which then gets interpreted back in the most awful audio sound you could probably hear at the time, or especially by today's standards. Some of it sounded right. A lot of people thought that maybe the audio files were in here, because there is a preset here. It's kind of loud. This is lightsabers, I think. And then here are like the blaster effects. And I'm not sure how well that sound is coming up. Let's try the blaster effects one more time. And the lightsabers. Alright, so there's this clunky piece of junk, right? And a lot of people thought that because it was so clunky that there's a whole bunch of sounds here that would get unlocked as figures were released. But that's not actually the case. It really kind of redefined how this technology was used, and it would take data from these Commtech chips that were character specific. They actually did pretty cool. I'm not sure why I grabbed the battle droid to start with, but there's this chip here, and then there's this hidden antenna in here that would transmit the data, and then the data gets interpreted as sound. So I'm gonna leave that was this going off. I'm going to leave a link to an article where there's some prototypes, because if the data were on here at this point by 2025, somebody would have hacked into this to release all the audio files. That wasn't the case. What happened was Hasbro was going to release a Commtech 2 system, which actually sounded a little bit better, but it stored more data on the card, which was very cool. It never got released. I have a link to a resource page that really kind of breaks this down way better than I could. And it has a bunch of the prototype sounds linked with character-specific details. It's actually pretty cool. So I'll link that in the description below. But again, I'm not really trying to make fun of the technology. I brought this up because of what it inspired. So first, before we get into it, let me just show you how this sounds with the battle droid. And then we'll pull away from my face and we'll focus on some of the characters and some of the chips. So again, that's your sound on. You hold this right over
Where are you taking them? Halt! You're under arrest.
And each time you move it, it makes this sound. It almost feels like there's a magnetic thing, you know, when you get the polar opposites.
Turn them away. Where are you taking them?
So you could also store each of these by hitting one of these buttons here. So if I hold this button here.
Halt! You're under arrest. Turn them away.
I'm doing it wrong. So you hold it here first. It makes that sound, and then makes that save sound. And now I don't have to use this at all. I could do this.
Where are you taking them? Halt! You're under arrest. Get him away.
And it would store the data. So that's why it didn't unlock anything. It just interpreted the data of the chip. So again, I'll pull up some more characters, but I have like, I don't know, a Gungan officer. So not just Jar Jar or Jar Jar. I didn't even pull up Jar Jar yet. Jar Jar is about as dumb as the battle droid. So that's probably why I said it. You got this Gungan officer here. And like I said, it would have like a character picture there with a hologram or against a hologram background on the other side. Let's see if it's not really focusing, but it would have the character's name and all the lines and sound effects that are on this card. This thing turns off like after 30 seconds, which is pretty cool, I guess. Oh, you know what I just noticed? It has this like belt clip as if kids would actually walk around with this, but whatever. But when I get down to the character specific ones that I have, I'm going to tell you right now, they're not the right figures. I don't think I have the right figures. I just have these things and I matched them up with some of the figures. But since we talked about R2, I don't know how good that's going to sound. I do have this R2 chip. Now this thing sounds way better. Like, it doesn't sound like R2, but when you consider what the technology is doing, it's taking the data that's on here and it's interpreting it through the audio. So there's a couple people that have reviewed this in the past where they think it's like people doing impressions and it's like poor audio impressions. It's not. It's just how the data is being interpreted and played back. Some of them are probably real clips from the movies, and it just sounds awful. And before I show you the rest of the examples, I just wanted to say what this actually kind of inspired and why I was interested in kind of reviewing this for May Power of the Force. So the neat thing about the Commtech chip system was that it was early in kind of a primitive RFID type of technology that kind of played a role in like popularizing the idea of interactive toys that were technology based, like digital technology based. So it's almost like it's like a radio frequency MP3 sound that we're hearing. And some things that this thing actually inspired was, do you guys remember Skylanders? There was that Skylanders game with Spyro the Dragon. They used a tag very similar to this, and you would put it on the base and it would unlock stuff in the games, right? It was also used in Disney Infinity. That was like 2013. I didn't say, but I think Skylanders was like 2011. Disney Infinity 2013. And then one of the coolest ones is Nintendo. Nintendo started using it in like 2014 for the Amiibos. The Amiibos use the same type of technology and it unlocks different characters or skins or things throughout all the games. I know that we used the Zelda ones for Breath of the Wild, and it would unlock all sorts of tools for Link to use throughout Breath of the Wild, or it would unlock different skins or outfits. It was always very cool. And it wasn't just games that or interactive toys that were inspired by this thing. Believe it or not, this is an early inspiration for contactless payments. So Apple Pay, Google Wallet, when you use your credit card and it's got that little chip. It inspired other smart toys like the Osmo system or the Cosmo robot. And it also proved that you could use or just store data for access cards. So like, your hotel room key is a card now, and that would just unlock. But the other thing that this thing inspired was future product designs. And what I mean by that is they found a way to make things less clunky. Instead of poor audio quality, they were able to improve it. So by this thing being designed, it kind of improved future designs, if that makes any sense. But ultimately, this thing blended like physical and digital experiences, especially in toys and then the world of entertainment, like I said, video games. So a little ahead of its time. It was definitely clunky. The audio quality is awful. I'm probably not doing justice to how bad this sounds. So if you ever get a chance to check one out, listen to it. It's crap, but when you can kind of appreciate when it came out, back in 98, 99, it's actually pretty impressive. And then the other things that it inspired, it's actually kind of an important piece of Star Wars toy history. Or maybe it's just a piece of junk. I don't know. Have you guys ever had this? Do you guys remember getting the tags and maybe never listening to them? Let me know in the comments below. I will show some examples and we will call it a day. May the power of the fourth of the Force of the prequels, I don't know, be with you. Alright, Star Wars fans. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, or don't. Go live your best life. One example we got here is Anakin. And I know this is the Jedi. This is the Jedi version of Anakin, but this is the figure I got with them. One neat thing about this was they made these stands. So you were getting this like interactive play, and
I'm not afraid.
I don't know. I'm not afraid. I don't remember that line.
I will not disappoint you, Obi-Wan. I want to learn the ways of the Force and become a Jedi like Qui-Gon. I am not afraid.
So there you can kind of tell, like, the audio is actually not that bad. Here is Darth Maul. Here's his chip.
If the trace was correct, I will find them quickly, Master. At last, we will have revenge.
And I guess I wasn't thinking when I set up the camera here.
If the trace was correct, I will find them quickly, Master.
He's much taller than Anakin.
At last, we will have revenge.
But that definitely did not sound like Darth Maul. And here's a Jawa, much closer in size to Anakin. And like I said before, you can just kind of hold this button down and it'll save it. And you could just hit the button now. Yeah, that's right. It was also a Gonk droid. I don't know if you can see that. Here's Yoda, close in size. Here's his chip.
How feel you?
Now that sounds nothing like Yoda.
Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering.
Suffering like this audio. The audio is awful.
May the Force be with you.
But it's actually not that bad. It's like a catch-22. I don't know.
The dark side is.
And then one more example is, here's this Han Solo one. Now, I don't think I have the right figure here. That doesn't really matter. But this came out later after episode 1. And this was just, again, trying to take advantage of the technology.
Julie, get us out of here!
Now, Harrison Ford has never sounded that great.
Great kid! Don't get cocky! Han Solo, Captain and Millennium Falcon.
Man, that just sounds awful. But anyway, you get an idea of what the Commtech Reader was, what it inspired, and what they were trying to do. Again, if you like this, go ahead, click and subscribe, and I will see you neighbors later. Now this thing sounds way better. Then right before the